Hello all, welcome to the video series SQL. In this video, we will talk about a DML command called insert. So using insert, we will be trying to insert some data into the existing table. Alright, so let's get started. I have two tables, customers and orders, in my customers database. Alright, so now I want to insert some data into customers table. So before insert, I want to see if there is any data already existing in this particular customers table. So how do I do that? If you want to look at the data in an existing table, all you have to do is use a select command. Okay, so select command is used to look at the data inside the table. Okay, so what is the syntax for this particular command? The basic syntax for this command is select star from table name customers. All right, so select star from customers, and then if you select is nothing but the command that says you are looking at the data, and then star is nothing but all columns. Okay, because in customers table, if you look at the columns, there are 4 columns. Okay, so a table can have more than one column, right? It can have 100 columns. You don't want to look at all 100 columns. You just want to look at a few columns. Alright, so in that case, instead of star, you can give only few column names. Okay, but star means show me all columns, and then from, and then the table name. Okay, so select star from table, and then if you select that particular query and then click execute, you can see the column names has appeared, but then there is no data in this particular table. Alright, so this is basically selecting the data out of table. Let's say you don't want to look at all these columns. Instead, you just want to look at customer ID column and first name. Okay, so separate your column names by commas, and then run your query. You can see only those 2 columns, but still there is no data. All you are seeing is just the column names. Alright, so now let's use an insert command and insert some data into this particular table. So I want to insert into table customers, and which columns I want to insert into? Customer ID. You can drag and drop these columns onto your query window. That way you don't have to write the column names. First name, last name, and date of birth. Okay, so that's your insert into, and these are the column names columns that you want to insert into, and then you can provide the values into those columns. So in customer ID, you want to provide 1001. Okay, and then customer ID is an integer value, is an integer column. So integers you can just give like 1001. Okay, you can just give the value, and then when you are trying to give the characters, let's say for first name, if you are trying to give a characters, you have to enclose them in single quotes. Okay, so for first name, let's say John, so you have to enclose that characters in a single quotes. Alright, so that's my first name, and if I want to give a last name, and then date of birth is a date time field, so you can give date time value. So let's say 2016 Jan 1st, and then let's say 10 a.m. Alright, so that's basically your data. So the order of the data should be in the same order of the columns here. Okay, so you have customer ID, first name, last name, and date of birth, and then you have provided your values here. So insert into table, and these are the column names that you want to insert the data into, and these are the values for these particular columns. Alright, so now your query is ready, and then if you select that query and then click execute, you can see one row affected. That means one record or one row got inserted into the table. So if you go and select your table. Now to look at the data and then click execute, you can see the column names, and then you can also see the data inside that particular columns or inside that table. So now you have successfully inserted the data into the table. Alright, so let's say if I want to insert multiple columns, or sorry, multiple only two columns. Okay, now here in our previous example we inserted the data into all the columns. Alright, so now let's say I just want to insert data into two of the columns. Let's say I don't want to insert the data into last name and date of birth. Okay, so let's try to do that. So all I have to do is give the column names and then give the values. Okay, so that's my customer ID and that's the first name. So I'm not inserting any data into last name column and date of birth column. Let's see. So I select my query and then click execute, and then you can see it says cannot insert the value null into column last name because column does not allow nulls. And then if you see the last name column, it says not null. That means you cannot ignore that particular column. You have to have some information in that particular column. Alright, so let's give last name as well because it's mandatory to provide a value in last name, in first name and customer ID. See, customer ID is not null, first name is not null, and last name is not null. Alright, so I'm trying to give the values for three columns, and then these are the three values, and then try to run the query. Now you can see one row affected, but you can ask me a question, what about date of birth? Date of birth is designed in such a way that it can allow nulls. That means we can insert a data or a row into this table with a unknown date of birth. Alright, so you can ignore that column when you are trying to insert the data. Alright, so now if you look at your data in the customers table, you can see a second record got inserted, and then you can see the null, null. That means the information is not known for date of birth column for this particular record. Alright, so if you give date of birth, it will take it. If you don't give, it will just put it as a null value. That means the information is unknown. Alright, so that's how the null and not null will work. Now let's say you want to insert the data into this table for two records. Just until now we were just trying to insert one record or one row. Now if I want to insert more than one row, how do I do that? So just copy the same query. Alright, and then all you have to do is provide a comma and then give another set of values here, 1002, and then mark Corey. So that's my first, sorry, so that's my first row or first customer data, and then this is my second customer data or second row. Okay, so the rows are separated by commas. And then now if you try to run this particular query, you can see two rows affected because we tried to insert two records. So similarly you can have any number of rows separated by commas, and then you can insert the data. Now let's look at the table data. Alright, so now you can see the data has been inserted. Alright, Tim Cook and Mark Corey. Alright, but then the date of birth is still null because you didn't provide it. If you have provided, it would have taken it. Alright, so that's how you can insert two records into a table at the same time. Alright, so now let's say we'll try to create another table. Another table called customers 333. all right, with the same structure. So basically same structure but with a different name. So I created this table, and then if you refresh your databases, you can see that new table has been created. And then now let's look at the data in that new table. All right, so there is no data available in this table. So now let's say if I want to dump or copy all the data which is in customers table, I want to copy all this customers table data into this customers 333 table. All right, so how do I do that? What is the syntax for that? So the syntax would be almost the same. Okay, but instead of giving the values command, all you have to do is select star from customers, and then you want to insert into this table, right? So insert into our new table, and then these are the columns in our new table, and then select star from customers is the old data, right, or old table, existing table data. So you want to copy all the data from customers into customers 3. So instead of providing the values manually or hard coding, you can directly move the data from copy the data from one table into another table. All right, so if you click execute, you can see 4 rows affected. So if you look at the data in the customers 333, all the four rows data which was in customers 3, now it's also in customers 333 in a new table. So that's how you can copy data from one table to another table. All right, so when you are doing that, it's also mandatory that whatever columns you are giving here, okay, so there should be same number of columns here as well. All right, so instead of star, you can also do all the column names. Okay, instead of star, you can give all the column names comma separated. Okay, so let's say I will try to create another 444 and then create this table. Now there is no data in 444, and then now I want to ignore date of birth. Okay, so I don't want to insert the data into date of birth. Okay, so now you can just do that, give the column names that you want to insert into, okay, and then the column names that you want the data from. All right, so if you give an extra column, or if the number of columns doesn't match, like let's say date of birth here, so there are 4 columns here and then there are 3 columns here, it would give you an error saying the columns doesn't match. The select list from the insert statement contains fewer items than the insert list. All right, so there are 4 columns here and 3 columns here, so you have to be careful on that as well. So the number of columns should be the same, and then the order of the columns also should be the same. So now select that query and then click execute. Now you can see the 4 rows has been inserted into this particular customers. Sorry, we put customers 333. Let's give it as customer 444 and then insert it again, and then select your date. Look at the data in your customers 444 table. Now you can see the 4 rows has been inserted, but then date of birth is not copied from your original table. Original table date of birth is one of the record has date of birth, right? So one of the record has date of birth, but then in the final 444 table you don't have date of birth at all because you ignored inserting data into that particular column. All right, so that's how you insert data from one table to another table. Now let's say you have this data, select star from 444. All right, so now you want to copy this data into a new table, but now you don't want to create the table. Alright, you don't want to create the new table, but you want to copy this data into a new table by using a new command called select star into. Alright, and then what is the table name you want to give? Let's say customers 555. Alright, so in the above example, we created the table first and then we inserted the data from other table into that new table. Now this into new table will basically, what does it do is it will basically select star from this table and then it will put everything into this table. So by this it will also create this table structure. So this table will be created in the same command. Alright, so basically it gets all the data from this table and then it will put into this table and then it will also create the table. Okay, so customers 555 is not existing now, and then it will also copy the data. Basically it copies the data and then creates the new table at the same time. So what is the structure of this new table? It will basically copy the same structure of this source table. Okay, so if I select that particular query and then click execute, you can see 4 rows affected, and then if you refresh your tables you can see customers 555 has been created, and then if you look at the columns, see all the same column information from your original table has been copied and then it created a new table. Alright, so if you, and then it also moved the data as well, copied the data as well. So if you look at the table data, you can see 4 rows, it's there. Alright, so now here you put star. That means you want to insert all the columns. You want to insert all the columns from the original table into this new table. Now let's say if you want to just copy only few columns. Alright, so let's say customer ID and first name only. Alright, so basically what you are trying to do, you are trying to select customer ID and first name from customers 444 and then you want to put it into a new table or create a new table customer 666. Alright, so only 2 columns structure will be created. Okay, and then only 2 column data will be moved into this particular table. Okay, so if I run that query, you can see 4 rows affected and then your table has been created, and then if you look at the data in our new table, only 2 rows has been copied. Alright, so whichever, let's say a table has 100 columns, you just want to copy 10 columns, you can just put the column, give the column names, and then you can give the table name. Okay, so that way all the column structure from your source table will be copied and then a new table will be created and then the data also will get copied. Alright, so that's how you copy data from one table to another table. Okay, so if the table is existing, you have to use insert into and then select from. If you want to create a table, you have to use select star or select column names into table name from original table. Okay, or if you want to insert some raw data, you can just use insert into table name and then column names and then the values. Alright, so that's how you can insert data into a table.